want to close, Mr. Chairman. I heard you say that it is important that this Congress take strong stands against hate. But I'm going to be honest with you. When I look at the agenda of my friends, the anti-LGBTQ agenda, the anti-women's rights agenda, the anti-civil rights agenda, basically trying to undermine our civil rights laws, or the indifference my friends have shown when the former president hangs around with white supremacists like Nick Fuentes. Nothing is said. So this selective outrage is really quite interesting to me. But we should combat hate wherever it is. And again, people will look at this bill and decide whether or not this is the right way to go. But my understanding is that my Republican friends have been working overtime to try to defund the Office on Civil Rights, which I think would be responsible for implementing what is recommended in this bill. Boy, it's interesting. You want to give the office more responsibility on one hand, but you want to underfund them on the other hand. I can't quite figure you guys out. But in any event, I welcome our witnesses and look forward to their testimony. I yield back.
Oklahoma reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the comments from my good friend from Oklahoma, who he knows I have great affection for him, but I'm dizzy from all the spin, quite frankly. First let me just say about the CR. What we know is that what may or may not pass in the House, based on the fact that the Freedom Caucus seems to be calling the shots, will never pass the Senate. So we know whatever is going to come out of the Rules Committee in the next 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever, if anything, will ever be able to get the votes, not just amongst Democrats, but amongst Republicans in the Senate. Secondly, we do know that the Senate is working in a bipartisan way. They already have cloture to move forward with a process to bring up a CR, an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote. But we know what they pass would pass this House if put on the floor. And the reason why this government will in all likelihood shut down is because the Speaker of the House is so beholden to a small group of the most extreme members that he won't put that on the floor. He will rig it so that we do not have a chance to be able to vote on it. That's how this government will shut down. Secondly, my good friend talks about how this is really no big deal. It's just another vote, and everybody should be happy. But let me ask, if this were good for Ukraine and Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia's illegal war, then why would members of the pro-Putin caucus even agree to this? If everyone genuinely thought there was no difference between keeping the funding in the defense bill and moving it separately, why insist on all of this? The answer is really simple. Republicans who seem to be enamored with Putin want this funding sent separately to the Senate because they know that's their best shot to prevent this money from going to Ukraine at all. In fact, when Marjorie Taylor Greene left the Republican conference meeting this morning, and I quoted it already, but I'll quote it again, she said, "We're not funding Ukraine, period." That's what I heard in there, end quote. And we all know that there are senators like Rand Paul, and Tommy Tuberville, who will block a separate Ukraine funding bill from moving forward. They're actively preventing the Senate from completing its work as we speak. This is not a flaw in the sidecar plan. It's a main feature and a goal. So let's be clear. This funding that we're talking about here is long-standing security assistance. It has been in the defense bill for years, even before Putin invaded Ukraine. This is not the supplemental funding that President Zelensky requested when he met with Speaker McCarthy last week. This is not the supplemental funding the administration requested in their emergency funding request, and it is not the supplemental funding that the Senate is trying to put in their bipartisan CR. So spare me the argument that somehow this is a good thing and it gives everybody a chance for their voice to be heard on this topic. If everybody wanted their voice to be heard on this topic, you would have speaker after speaker after speaker right now speaking on this bill and speaking about their concerns about our Ukraine policy. There's no one over there. Let's all be real here about what's happening. And the House already had its voice heard, and it overwhelmingly voted to support funding in the defense bill, a 3/4 majority. You can't get that many people to agree on lunch in this place. And it's a majority of your majority. The pro-Putin extremists didn't like the outcome, so they talked to the Speaker into rigging the vote. That is what this is all about. And Mr. Speaker, so I am here to offer the House the opportunity to demonstrate for a third time that we stand by Ukraine in their time of need. And I urge that we defeat the previous question. And if we do, I will offer an amendment that would strike the provision of the rule eliminating security assistance funding for Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record along with any extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
The lead from Pennsylvania is recognized for questions.
Thank you, and I'd first yield to Mr. McGovern.
Well, I'm just a little confused by that last statement. You say this is not going to be fixed with laws. What the hell are we doing here then?
We are laying the foundation for an administration that will enforce these laws and strengthening their hand
who's been indicted 4 times on 91 felony counts?
I can't foresee the future, but I can tell
the
you
guy
this.
the guy who just has been forced to pay $85 million for defaming a woman he sexually abused. I mean, that's who you. I mean, come on. I mean, this is. Then wait till then go out and campaign for this guy. And maybe he wins, and then, but if law's not going to make any difference, why are we here?
Whoever the Republican and Democratic nominees are, this is going to be the question that the American people are going to have to settle at the ballot box.
I just when you say the laws don't matter here, then we're here doing this.
We need a Senate that is just as devoted.
We're wasting our time, if that's what you think.
We need a Senate that is just as devoted to enforcing our immigration laws as the previous president was, as this House is, and we need a president with the resolve to secure our borders and defend our country, which is something we presently lack.
If this is an important issue that we need to act now, then I'm just curious how my friends can defend the former president who was saying, do nothing, because we need a campaign issue.
We invite you,
Mr. Neville,
we invite you to join us.
I want to, first of all, a couple of things. First of all, these bills deal with, for the most part, with legal immigrants, not illegal immigrants. Let's get that straight. For the most part, they deal with legal immigrants. Second of all, I was not surprised. I was pleased at his honesty that Mr. McClintock a moment ago said that the whole purpose of these bills is his campaign rhetoric.
I didn't say that.
Oh, yes, you did. You said that we're here to present things to the American public, not to pass laws. I'd also point out.
With all respect,
I
I said we are laying the groundwork for an administration that will actually enforce the laws.
Okay, which is another way of saying it's a campaign issue. To lay the groundwork for an administration that will actually enforce the laws, to lay the groundwork for another administration, which is to say these bills are intended solely to be a campaign issue. I'd also point out, Mr. Chairman, or ranking member.
I like the first one better.
It'll be. The former president, Trump, who has said we shouldn't pass any legislation, no matter what it says, on immigration so that he can have an issue, has been indicted on 91 counts, but he's been convicted of what the judge called rape. He is a convicted rapist. And that is hard to bear for someone who wants to be the next president of the United States.
Well, I appreciate that, and I thank the gentlelady for yielding.
Rules Committee.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Burgess. Let me just say, Chairman Greene, I have respect for you as a member of this Congress, but quite frankly, reading what is before us, and watching all this unfold, I think you should be ashamed of yourself for bringing this kind of trash before this committee. I mean, we are here because Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Chock full of Nuts caucus wanted us to be here. Let me ask you, Chairman Greene, if you succeed and Secretary Mayorkas is impeached, who who replaces him? Do we know who will be in charge?
Well, I assume that there's a deputy who would step forward
You know
in
the
an
name
interim.
of the, you know the name of the?
No.
You don't?
No.
So, I mean, it seems like it's a pretty.
I don't see why that's relevant.
Well, it is, I mean, because the question is, I mean, will it be somebody who is implementing Biden's policies?
So if he
or will it
murdered
be
someone, would we just not get him out of office
Well,
because he,
so you
I
don't-
mean,
you
there's
don't-
nobody named
so-
to
so
follow
the-
him?
The answer to the question is you don't know.
You're right, I
who will
don't.
replace. Okay, so let me ask you this. When exactly did you decide to impeach Secretary Mayorkas? Do you know what the exact date was? Was it before or after April 18th, 2023?
April 18th, 2023. Now, we have proceeded with a five-phased approach, looking at this as fairly
Was
as
it
possible.
before or after April 18th, 2023?
I can't tell you when I thought this needed to happen.
Well, the reason why I ask you is I'm looking at a New York Times article
That
of
misquoted
April
me,
18,
yes.
2023, entitled "Key Republicans Tell Donors That He Will Pursue Impeachment of Mayorkas." And they have an audio, they have you on audio tape saying that you would, and I quote, "deliver charges to the House Judiciary Committee, which handles impeachment proceedings." I'd like to ask unanimous consent to insert this article into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
I guess the question is, why would you tell donors that you were going to impeach Secretary Mayorkas before you open an investigation? Why would you do that?
The article misquoted me. I do
I
recall
think they
that.
have you on audio, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, they did misquote me. I can tell you, I went back and checked myself.
All right, well, maybe we can ask them to produce the, but before completion of your investigation, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is the author of this, said that impeachment had been, and I quote, "guaranteed to her." That was on November 30th of 2023. And she said, and again, I quote, "I've been guaranteed by Speaker Johnson and Chairman Greene that the House would impeach Secretary Mayorkas." Why would you promise her that you would impeach no matter what the evidence said? Or
Well,
she
by that
was
time, we'd
putting-
been through a lot of hearings and reports.
So in November 30th, you did promise her.
No, I don't remember ever promising her
Is she
anything.
lying, or is she
I don't know. It could be a misunderstood conversation. That happens all the time in this building.
Yeah, well, boy, but what it sounds to me is like this whole thing is a predetermined performative political stunt. I mean, it's not about the evidence or the Constitution. I think what's happening here is you guys are doing this because Trump told you to.
Mr. Trump has
yeah.
never asked me to do that, and I want to be on the record with that because the accusation has been made multiple times.
But again,
and to your point about me being embarrassed, sir, I took this oath to the Constitution when I was
Trump-
17 at
Trump
West Point.
tweeted- Trump
The
tweeted-
Constitution matters
Yeah,
to me.
Trump tweets his.
Not,
Yeah, what I'm learning is that Trump tweets.
Let's not talk over each other because our stenographer has trouble with that.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
Trump tweeted that he wanted him gone.
I
So
don't
that's
even
nothing, yeah. Well,
think I follow
it's
him.
hard for me to believe that the Republicans in this House, do not pay attention to every word that is tweeted or uttered by the former president, because you seem to be following his orders to a T. Let me ask you, Chairman Greene, if it gives you any pause that so many staunch Republicans and colleagues of yours say that you have no cognizable basis here for impeachment. I don't know if you've heard these quotes, but I'd like to ask you to respond to some of them. A political stunt, and I'm quoting Secretary Michael Chertoff, who's a Bush administration DHS secretary. Another quote, Secretary Mayorkas did not commit an impeachable offense. He is not guilty of high crimes or misdemeanors. That was Representative Ken Buck, who is a Republican of this House. Mr. Chairman, can I have order in the committee, please?
Yeah, the committee will come to order.
Yeah, no. Another quote, these are not impeachable offenses, Representative Tom McClintock. Quote, I haven't seen the constitutional standard met yet, Senator Mitt Romney, who actually ran for president as a Republican nominee against Barack Obama. Quote, there is no current evidence that he is corrupt or committed an impeachable offense. That is why the case has not been made to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. That was Jonathan Turley. I guess I find it shocking the number of Republicans who have basically come out and said that this is nuts. And these are just moderate Republicans. It's a lot of hardcore conservatives have said, let's hit the brakes here. What is your response to all these people who seem to have a real problem with this on the Republican side.
Well, Mr. Ranking Member, obviously I disagree with them. But as I was saying earlier, I took the oath to the Constitution when I was 17 on the plane at West Point. Spent 24 years living under that oath as an officer in the United States Army. And I will tell you that my oath wasn't to the people, it wasn't to the geography, it wasn't to the flag, it was to the Constitution. Same oath we take for this job. This secretary has disregarded a co-equal branch of government, 7 specific laws that he has subverted and basically had his people break those laws. And I find that having a cabinet secretary get to pick and choose which laws this body passes is unacceptable. And if he were a Republican, I'd be doing the exact same thing.
Well, I appreciate the answer, but that's not the answer to my question. Let me ask you yes or no, and this is really, I think it's a simple yes or one-word answer. Do you think Congress needs to pass new laws to fix our problems at the border?
We absolutely need to pass laws. H.R. 2 is sitting over there waiting on the Senate to pass it.
Well, as you know, we have a Republican-controlled House, barely. You have a democratically controlled Senate, barely. You have a Democratic president. So obviously, there has to be some give and take. The Senate has been working in a bipartisan way, and you're saying something that, quite frankly, one of our colleagues said the opposite of last week in the Rules Committee. He said that we didn't need any new laws, but you're saying we need new laws. And I guess if that's the case, what's your response to Speaker Johnson refusing to bring up the Senate bipartisan bill to address the problems at the border? Because I'm just trying to understand the rationale of people complaining that we need to better control our border, but yet there seems to be a pretty tough border security bill coming out of the Senate, and you guys are basically saying dead on arrival.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the way this bill is written, it actually facilitates more, just what's happening right now. It codifies the things that are currently against law that Mr. Mayorkas is doing. And it's rather interesting that we're negotiating more law, which I agree, we need to fix some things, to hand to a secretary who has chosen to break the law. I'll give you an example I said in my opening statement. In H.R. 2, we actually requested more Border Patrol agents than the President did in his supplemental. So it's not an issue of we don't want to address needs.
Well,
the issue is what those people are going to be used for. Processing more people into the country is not the right answer. That just creates more of the incentive and brings more waves of people.
Policy disagreements are really not the basis to impeach.
It is to write law, though, right? It is if we're writing law.
By the way, just
but
for the
once
record,
it's enacted,
just for the record, Homeland Security is detaining more people at the border than Congress has given them money for.
Sir, they've decreased their request for ICE detention beds every year.
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
No,
They're actually creating a problem.
But going back to my question, which was like, why not have a debate and vote on what some very conservative senators, have negotiated with Democrats? Explain to me why Congress should not have the opportunity to debate or vote on that.
I don't understand why the Senate hasn't debated the bill we sent them, and let's get it into conference committee. As I understand it, when we pass a bill, like the NDAA, I was on Armed Services for a while. They pass a version, or they take our version and amend it, and then it goes to conference.
Well, I think the difference here, if I could, just
Please
be clear. I mean, and to the best of my knowledge, Vice Chair Thompson, I don't think you were asked to sit down and to negotiate with Republicans on H.R. 2, were you? I don't know if anybody was. This was a purely partisan bill. By contrast, in the Senate, they have worked out a partisan bill because I think they realize that a purely partisan bill will probably never see the light of day, will never become law. So the question is, if you want to get something done, you got to work in a bipartisan way. Hey, if you guys maintain control of the House and you win the Senate and you win the presidency, you can do whatever you want to do. That's just not the reality we're dealing with. And I just want to stay for the record. Someone just sent me this breaking news in a statement to Fox News. You guys all watch Fox News. The Border Patrol Union says that they support and endorse the bipartisan border deal negotiated in the Senate, saying it's not perfect, but far better than the status quo. And so, I'm just curious why not welcome an opportunity to have that debate and discussion on the floor? And even if you can't get 100% of what you want, something's better than nothing, I think, right?
Well, if you take the 5,000 that they want to allow to come in every day and multiply that times 365 and multiply that times an average of $15,000 that the drug cartels collect per person, that's how many billions of dollars we're giving to the drug cartel with this bill. And I'm sorry, sir, I just can't support that.
I guess the answer is that
Not this one.
yeah,
Maybe another version, but not this one.
Yeah, well, the answer is that the hell with bipartisanship. It's
No, I
our
have
way
a
or the
Reagan
highway.
O'Neill club.
Right, yeah.
I bring Democrats and Republicans to my house. We sit down and negotiate and talk about stuff all the
could
time.
You could, we're the Rules Committee, you can call it up and have amendments to it if you want.
I'll be surprised if it gets out of the Senate, but
I know
We'll see.
Trump weighed in, he's against it, so maybe not. You say that you would impeach a Republican, for, if a Republican were releasing people back into the United States.
no, sir. I said if they were violating the laws
All right,
passed by
let me
this
show you.
body.
Okay, but you keep on talking like somehow that the border was solved when Trump was
No,
president.
no, there were
Yeah,
people who came
right.
in,
So in the
but
final
it was
two-
fixed.
In the final 2 years of Trump's presidency, the Cato Institute, which my friends on the other side of the aisle like to quote, says that there were 700,000 migrants released into the United States pending their immigration proceedings. Was that Trump's DHS Secretary Nielsen's fault?
I'd have to, which year are you talking about,
In
Mr.
the
Ranking
final
Member?
2 years of Donald Trump's presidency?
So 700,000 over 2 years.
That's what Cato says, and was Secretary Nielsen's fault? Should she have been impeached for that?
As I understood the way she executed the law, she attempted to detain first, and then when the resources were exceeded, there were people that were on a case-by-case basis paroled into the country. The current methodology, as the courts have ruled, is just the opposite.
The resources are exceeded now, Chairman Greene.
No, they're leaving ICE detention beds empty.
Yeah, well, I mean, anyway, but should she have been impeached for that?
As I said, and as the courts have ruled, Mr. Mayorkas, contrary to even Barack Obama, many other presidents, secretaries of Homeland Security, has done just the opposite of what they've all done, and he is releasing immediately into the country against the laws written by this Congress.
Yeah. You know what, I'm going to, it is so sad that this is what we are doing right now. I want to ask unanimous consent to insert into the record a Wall Street Journal article entitled "Don't Impeach Alejandro Mayorkas" by Michael Chertoff.
Without objection, so ordered.
And let me just quote a little bit from this article. And he said, and I quote, I can say with confidence that for all the investigating that the House Committee on Homeland Security has done, they have failed to put forth evidence that meets the bar. He went on to say, quote, I don't agree with every policy decision the Biden administration has made. There are aspects of immigration strategy that are worthy of debate. But House Republicans are ducking difficult policy work and hard-fought compromise. Impeachment is a diversion from fixing our broken immigration laws and giving DHS the resources needed to secure the border. You know, I say that, I want to highlight this because this is a Republican who is in the former head of Department of Homeland Security. And one of the things that, he and others have said, even those who may not agree with everything that Secretary Mayorkas has done, is that he is a decent and honorable public servant who has given his life in service to this country. And the fact that for political purposes, because that's what this is all about, this is the first time that we have ever impeached a sitting cabinet member. First time we've ever tried to. And I hope at the end of the day that there'll be enough Republicans who will understand the severity of what we are doing here. But to go after a good, honorable, decent man, to try to drag his name through the mud like this, I think is unconscionable. We want good people, Democrats and Republicans, to serve in government. As I said before, if policy disagreements were the basis to be able to impeach cabinet secretaries, I would have voted to impeach every one of the secretaries in the last administration. I think were horrible, horrible. But that's not the way it works. I don't know. Let me ask Mr. Thompson if he has anything he wants to add.
Well, thank you very much. I think that the issue for a lot of us is that Congress makes the laws. The administration deals with the policy. All the issues that have been identified in this impeachment, there's a fix that Congress can do. The secretary has to do it within whatever the law is. He's tried, he's had opportunities to interpret the policies and try to make them work. But we need to provide more resources to the department. Only Congress can do that. We need to make sure that we have more patrol along the border. Congress can do that. We need technology. We need a lot of those things. And one of the things that concerns me the most is that a majority of the people on the committee who have had an opportunity to vote and provide resources to the department voted against providing resources. Now you want to impeach the man because you say he's not doing his job because the border is not secure. Give him the resources. We try to give the resources. A majority of our committee that has had an opportunity to vote to provide resources to DHS voted against it.
I appreciate that. And again, with all the things that we should be doing, that we're here doing this, which to me is purely political, is really a shame. I'm looking at the Committee on Homeland Security and kind of what you guys have been working on or not working on. Your committee, Chairman Greene, has held zero full committee hearings on emergency preparedness, cyber threats, infrastructure protection, transportation security, Department of Homeland Security management, or information sharing and intelligence efforts. Your committee has marked up only 14 bills thus far this Congress, compared to the 36 bills passed out of the committee by this same time last Congress under Democratic control. And instead, we are here bringing this sham impeachment to this committee today. I would urge that maybe some attention be given to these other matters, which are clearly important for the security of our country. And I want to close with going back to Senator Langford, again, an impeccably conservative senator, who said, some of his quotes were, quite frankly, I was surprised at some folks that said, it'll take me days and weeks to be able to read through the bill. This is the bill that the Senate Democrats and Republicans have came to an agreement on. Yet within a few minutes, they tweeted out their opposition after saying it's going to take them days or weeks to read the bill. He said on a Fox News interview, the key aspect of this, again, is we are, as Republicans, going to have press conferences and complain the border is bad and then intentionally leave it open, ? And he said, I would remind folks that during the Trump administration, we also had days of more than 4,000 people that were illegally crossing the border in 2019, and they were struggling because there were gaps and loopholes in the law. And again, on impeachment, he said, Mayorkas is carrying out President Biden's policies. You can swap secretaries, the policies are going to be exactly the same. And I think the follow-up to that is unless you change the laws. And what this is all about here today is not about securing the border. It is not about stopping the flow of fentanyl into the United States. It is not about anything that matters to anybody in this country. This is politics at its worst. This is a, Marjorie Taylor Greene production. And if that's the face of the Republican Party right now, I'll have at it. I feel bad for my Republican colleagues who, many of them I know better. But this is not what we should be doing. And again, in defense of Secretary Mayorkas, he's a good, honorable, decent man. He doesn't deserve this. Doesn't deserve this. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.